My name is Marina Ellison, and I am 34 years old. If anyone had told me that the most romantic evening of my life would turn into the moment everything I believed about love, safety, and trust shattered, I would have laughed. I was the kind of woman who believed in stability, planning, intention. Nothing in my life had ever spiraled out of control. Nothing had ever felt dangerous until that night. The restaurant was glowing with soft amber lighting, the kind that makes crystal glasses shimmer like stars. A pianist played something slow and elegant. My new husband, had made the reservation weeks in advance. He told me it was to celebrate our first month of forever. I remember looking at him across the table, my heart full, thinking, this is what happiness is supposed to feel like: safe, warm, certain. But that illusion collapsed in less than 30 minutes. Because the moment he stepped away from the table to take what he called an urgent business call, an elderly woman at the next table leaned toward me with trembling hands and a face carved by grief. She looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost, or as if she were talking to one. She pressed a thick fold of cash into my palm hard enough to hurt, and with a voice that cracked like breaking glass, she whispered, "Sweetheart, listen to me. Leave now. Call a cab. Climb out through the bathroom window if you have to. If you stay, you won't live to see tomorrow." I stared at her, stunned. Her eyes were filled with terror. Not confusion, not kindness, but raw terror. I opened my mouth to speak, but she shook her head violently. "Don't argue. Don't think. Run." And then she stood, wiped her eyes, and hurried toward the exit without looking back. I sat frozen. Surely she had the wrong person. Surely she had mistaken me for someone else. A woman in danger. A woman in an abusive marriage. But that wasn't me. I was Marina Ellison, a successful home renovation consultant with a thriving business, a beautiful townhouse inherited from my grandfather, and a husband who had swept me off my feet with charm, intelligence, and devotion. Nothing about my life said danger. Nothing at all. But within 48 hours, I would learn that she was the only person in that room trying to save my life. To understand the weight of her warning, you need to understand who I was before everything collapsed. 6 months before that night, I lived alone in my grandfather's townhouse, a 3-story brick home in a historic neighborhood, filled with the scent of old books and faint traces of cedar. My grandfather passed away 8 months prior, and the grief felt like an anchor tied to my chest. That house was the last piece of family I had left. My parents died in a car accident when I was 11. My grandfather raised me. He taught me how to sand floors, how to patch drywall, how to see potential in forgotten spaces. The house was more than an inheritance. It was a memory vessel, a sanctuary. It was also paid off and valued at around $950,000 in our city's market. I owned it entirely. I had a good career, a small team, steady clients. I had $300,000 in savings and investments my grandfather helped me set up. I wasn't wealthy, but I was secure. What I wasn't was happy. Grief had settled into my bones. The silence of that house at night felt cavernous, echoing with everything I'd lost. And that's when I met him. His name was Adrian Blackwell. We met at a charity art gala downtown. I was there for work, scouting the venue for a potential renovation proposal, when I felt someone observing me. Not in a predatory way, more curious. I was staring at a painting, trying to imagine how the wall might look with warm-toned sconces, when a low voice behind me said, "You're not looking at the art. You're measuring the space." I turned, startled. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, with streaks of silver at his temples that made him look polished rather than aging. He had one of those smiles, gentle, confident, charming enough to soften anyone. I actually laughed. "Occupational hazard," I said. "I redesign homes for a living." Well, he replied with a tilt of his head, you seem to redesign a room just by looking at it. It was such a simple compliment, but after months of hollow grief, it felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. We talked for nearly 2 hours. He told me he was a real estate investor, that he'd grown up poor, that he'd built his life from grit and determination. He listened intently when I spoke, asked questions, made thoughtful comments, remembered details. When he walked me to my car, he hesitated for just a moment before asking for my number. I hesitated too, but something inside me whispered yes. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Adrian pursued me in a way that felt safe, intentional, grounded, not possessive, not overwhelming, thoughtful. He texted good morning and good night. He brought my favorite tea without asking. He sent photos of renovation ideas he saw during his travels because I knew you'd appreciate the details. A man who pays attention becomes addictive. He learned the rhythm of my grief without me telling him. He filled in the lonely spaces with warmth. Then, one afternoon, as we walked through a botanical garden, he said, "You remind me of spring, Marina. Everything about you feels like renewal." I should have realized then how perfect he was acting, how strangely flawless his timing was. But I didn't. I had been lonely for so long that his affection felt like oxygen. 3 months into dating, he introduced me to his mother, Loretta Blackwell. She was elegant, soft-spoken, dressed in muted tones like a woman who believed in understated wealth. Adrian said she was a retired paralegal. She told me he'd been searching for the right woman for years. She held my hands in both of hers and said, "You're exactly what my son needs, and he's exactly what you deserve." I didn't realize yet those words had a double meaning. Adrian proposed in my grandfather's kitchen, my favorite place in the house. He knelt beside the oak table I'd eaten breakfast at every day as a child. "Marina," he said, "I don't want to waste another day without you. Marry me." I said yes with tears in my eyes. 3 weeks later, we married at the courthouse. He didn't want a big wedding. "No distractions," he said, "just us." Loretta attended, along with 2 of Adrian's associates. Everything was quick, quiet, intimate. I didn't know then that rushed weddings were his signature move. During the following weeks, Adrian was the perfect husband. Coffee in bed, help with design sketches, shoulders massages after long days, candlelit dinners, and then paperwork, insurance updates, joint accounts, estate planning, beneficiary forms, sticky notes where he wanted me to sign. Apologies for bothering me. I'll handle the boring filing, sweetheart. So I signed. I trusted him. I didn't know I was signing away my home. I didn't know he and Loretta had already mapped out my entire destruction, financially, socially, physically. When Adrian stepped away from the table that night, he touched my cheek gently. "Order dessert," he said. "Get that chocolate mousse you like." He kissed my forehead. He smiled softly, and he walked away. I watched him go, adoring every piece of him, until I felt someone watching me. The elderly woman sat 6 feet away, alone, silver hair tied neatly, eyes red and desperate. Her gaze locked onto mine like she'd waited her whole life for this moment. When she stood and rushed to my table, my body tensed. Her hand shook as she pushed the cash into my palm. "My daughter married him," she whispered. "The police called it an accident. It wasn't." I froze. She continued, voice cracking, "Run, now, or you won't survive the night." And then she was gone. I stared after her, heart pounding. Who was she? What daughter? What accident? I looked toward the lobby. Adrian wasn't on the phone. His phone was in his pocket, and he wasn't alone. He was speaking with 2 large men in suits too cheap for the restaurant. Their eyes lifted at the same time, and all 3 stared at me, not lovingly, not curiously, predatorily. My bones turned to ice. I rose shakily, walked toward the restroom, and locked the door behind me. My hands trembled so badly I could barely breathe. I climbed onto the sink and pushed the tiny bathroom window. It didn't move, painted shut. I felt like the room was shrinking. And then, "Marina?" Adrian's voice outside the door, too calm, too controlled. "Sweetheart, are you all right? Open the door." Then the restaurant manager's voice. "Mr. Blackwell, do you want me to unlock it for you?" Unlock it? Why did the manager speak like Adrian was a VIP? Why did he sound afraid? My phone battery was 18%. I needed to make a decision. Right now. I smashed the fire alarm glass. Sirens blared. Smoke, real or fake, poured from the kitchen. People panicked and ran. I unlocked the bathroom door and blended into the panicking crowd. Someone pushed me. Someone screamed. I kept my head down. I made it outside. I flagged a cab. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe until the cab pulled away from the curb. When I reached my townhouse, the porch lights were off. My hands shook as I fit my key into the lock. Except it didn't fit. The lock had been changed. I tried the deadbolt. Nothing. Footsteps approached. My neighbor, Mrs. Patel, looked at me with confusion. "Oh, Marina, didn't your husband tell you?" "Tell me what?" I whispered. "That you sold the house last week?" My heart stopped. What? "No, that's not possible." She frowned with concern. "But he said you were overwhelmed with debt from your grandfather. He explained you both needed a fresh start. A young family is moving in next week." I staggered backward, vision blurring. Debt? Sold? Moving out? It was all lies. He had taken everything. The world tilted under my feet. I stepped away from Mrs. Patel's puzzled, sympathetic face and stared at my front door, my grandfather's door, the same door I'd walked through thousands of times, carrying groceries, dreams, heartbreak, hope. Now it was a stranger's door, fitted with a lock I didn't recognize, a lock that told me I didn't belong here anymore. I tried my keys again, as if insisting hard enough would force reality to shift back into place. But the metal scraped uselessly against steel that wasn't mine. My home was gone, and I hadn't even known it. My throat tightened until I could barely form words. "Mrs. Patel, what else did he say? When did he tell you?" She nervously tugged at her cardigan sleeve. "Oh, honey, he explained everything just last week. He was so calm about it, too. He said you'd had a breakdown dealing with all the debt your grandfather left you, and you wanted to handle the sale privately. He said the buyers were generous to let you stay until you found a new place." I shook my head violently. "That's not true," I whispered. "None of that is true." She took a step toward me cautiously, as if approaching a wounded animal. "Marina, sweetheart, maybe you should talk to your husband. He seems so worried about you." I didn't hear the rest. My ears buzzed. My vision tunneled. I felt suspended between two realities, the one I thought I lived in and the one Adrian had constructed around me like a trap made of paperwork and lies. I stepped backward down the porch stairs, almost stumbling. Mrs. Patel's voice followed me. "You look pale. Do you need me to call someone?" But all I could do was shake my head and keep stepping back. Someone had taken my life, quietly, efficiently, with my own signature. I pulled out my phone, still at 11% battery, and logged into my banking app, praying this was all some grotesque misunderstanding. Instead, a bright red banner slapped across the screen. "Account frozen, suspected fraud." No access, no funds, no explanation beyond "Authorized user, A. Blackwell." I nearly dropped the phone. Adrian had locked me out of my own accounts, claiming that I was committing fraud. $300,000, gone from my hands in a blink. I sat down on the curb, the cold concrete seeping through my clothes as the truth soaked into my bones. He'd taken everything: my house, my savings, my credit lines, my business phone, my reputation, all within 24 hours of our anniversary dinner. The old woman's voice echoed in my head, "Run now, or you won't survive the night." I finally understood. I dialed my business line with trembling fingers. A robotic voice answered, "This number is no longer in service." What? I tried the number of my assistant, Kayla. She answered, breathless and emotional. "Oh my God, Marina, we've been trying to reach you all day. Are you okay? What happened?" The lawyer said, "What lawyer?" My voice cracked. "You know, the lawyer who brought in your resignation and severance agreement. The one you signed." "I didn't resign, but," Kayla hesitated, "but your signature was on everything, and the check was already deposited into your personal account." Deposited? Into the account I was now locked out of. My stomach twisted. "Kayla," I whispered, "I swear to you, I didn't sign anything." There was a long silence, then a soft, frightened, "Oh my God. Marina, what's going on?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but something is very, very wrong." I hung up before emotion could swallow me whole. I had nowhere to go. No home, no money, no job, no safety. My battery was at 6%. The cab driver who'd brought me from the restaurant had dropped me in front of the townhouse, my last known place of safety. Now, I wandered through the city for nearly 20 minutes until I found a 24-hour diner with flickering neon lights. I slid into a booth in the corner, gripping the stack of cash the elderly woman had given me. I counted it. $214. It felt like the last thread tethering me to life. I ordered a cup of coffee I didn't drink and used the remaining battery to search one name, Adrian Blackwell. Then, Adrian Blackwell wife, Adrian Blackwell marriage, Adrian Blackwell obituary, and suddenly a result appeared. A woman named Elena Ramirez Blackwell, deceased 2 years ago, cause of death, boating accident. My breath hitched. The obituary listed her mother, Clara Ramirez. The name struck me like a fist. That was the woman from the restaurant, the woman who had warned me. I clicked deeper, trembling, and found a blog. Simple, black text on a white background. Title, Justice for Elena. A mother's desperate chronicle of her daughter's death. I read every post with ice in my veins. Elena married Adrian after a whirlwind 3-month romance, transferred her waterfront home into his name. 6 weeks later, she died during a romantic boat outing. The police called it an accident. Clara did not. Clara investigated for 2 years, digging into Adrian's past, and she found 3 previous marriages, 3 sudden deaths, 3 inheritances transferred to him. Each case ruled accidental or suicide, each in different cities, different jurisdictions, different aliases, but always the same pattern: charm, wedding, asset transfer, death. The final blog post was dated the day of my restaurant dinner. It read, "I saw him with a new woman today. She smiled at him the way Eleanor once did. If you're reading this, if you're her, please contact me. I tried to warn you tonight at the restaurant. Please don't ignore this. It may save your life." Below was a phone number. My phone died the moment I finished reading. I stared at the dead screen, the reflection of my own hollow eyes staring back. I felt weightless, as if the ground had slipped out from under me. I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't imagining danger. I was next. I used a payphone in the diner's back hallway, one of the few working ones left in the city. My hands shook as I fed coins into the slot and dialed the number from the blog. She answered on the second ring. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, fragile, cautious. "My name is Marina Ellison," I said. You gave me money at the restaurant tonight." Silence, then a choked sob. "Oh, thank God," she whispered. "You're alive." "Alive." The word felt surreal. Clara's voice trembled. Are you safe? Can anyone see you? Is he with you? No, I said. I'm alone. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what he's done, but I need to understand. She inhaled shakily. Meet me at Riverside Park, south entrance near the fountain. It's public. It's safe. Can you be there in an hour? Yes. Marina, her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. She hung up. I leaned against the cold, tiled wall beside the payphone and closed my eyes. I had nothing left but determination. I wasn't going to die the way Elena had, or the way the other wives had. I would not become another ghost in Adrian Blackwell's shadow. The walk took nearly an hour. The city was waking up. Nurses ending night shifts, joggers starting their mornings, elderly dog walkers strolling along sidewalks. Ordinary life, so painfully ordinary. Riverside Park was exactly as Clara described. Joggers circling the fountain. Children playing on an early morning playground. The sky tinted with a soft lavender dawn. And there she was. Clara sat on a bench facing the fountain, her hands folded in her lap, her silver hair pulled back, her posture stiff with anxiety. She stood the moment she saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she opened her arms. I collapsed into them like a child. The dam inside me broke. I sobbed into the shoulder of a woman I had never met until tonight. The only woman who had tried to save me. She held me tightly. I know, she whispered into my hair. I know, baby, I know. When I finally pulled away, she pressed tissues into my hands. You're not alone, she said firmly. You're not crazy, and this isn't your fault. Those were the first comforting words I'd heard in 24 hours. My daughter's name was Elena, Clara began, her voice quiet and steady, despite the storm behind her eyes. She was my only child. She told me everything. Elena met Adrian under nearly identical circumstances. Chance encounter, charm, whirlwind romance. He proposed in under 4 months, transferred her inherited property, changed, manipulated, controlled, and then killed her. Clara's voice cracked. They said she fell. They said the currents took her. But the bruises on her wrists. Her jaw tightened. The police refused to see what was right in front of them. She hired a private investigator. She uncovered the 3 previous women, Nicole Turner, Portland Lauren Bishop, Seattle Danielle Stewart, Sacramento, each wealthy, each dead, each signed property over before their deaths, each death ruled accidental. Different cities, Clara said bitterly. Different police departments. Different names he used. No one connected anything. And his mother? I asked. Clara exhaled sharply. Loretta Blackwell is not a retired paralegal. She was the administrative clerk for a courthouse for 30 years. She knows how to forge documents. She knows who will take a bribe. She knows how to make anything look official. My blood chilled. Clara continued. She keeps records, a ledger, every asset they've stolen, every woman they've destroyed. But the police refused to listen to me. They treated me like a grieving lunatic. Her voice softened. But when I saw you with him, I knew I couldn't fail again. I had to warn you. She looked at me with tears pooling in her eyes. Marina, he will not stop until he finishes what he started. I swallowed hard. What do we do? Clara straightened her spine, resolve hardening her features. We don't go to local police. They're useless at best, corrupt at worst. We need evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. What kind of evidence? I asked. That ledger, she said. It's in Loretta's office, in a safe behind a painting. I stared at her. You want to break into her house? She met my gaze without flinching. I want to stop them, not just for Elena, for you, for every woman they've preyed on. That ledger is the key. I felt the weight of my fear. I felt the weight of her grief. I felt the weight of what they stole from me. And I realized something. They had taken everything already. There was nothing left to lose except my life. When? I whispered. Tomorrow night, Clara said. There's a charity gala at their estate. The perfect cover. The rest of that day passed like a fever dream. Clara took me to her apartment, a small, tidy one-bedroom with plants on the windowsill and framed photos of Elena covering every surface. Elena as a little girl with pigtails. Elena in a cap and gown. Elena laughing on a beach, hair blown across her face by the wind. Elena standing in front of a small house, holding a set of keys and grinning. I realized, looking at those photos, that I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was standing in for every woman who hadn't survived long enough to fight back. Clara put a cup of tea in my hands. I didn't drink it, but the warmth grounded me. We don't have much time, she said. If Adrian realizes you're gone, he might accelerate whatever he had planned. What do you think he had planned? I asked, though I already knew. The pattern was written all over the blog posts, the obituaries, the falsified reports. She gave me a look that said everything. There's a reason they like boats, she replied quietly. It's hard to get clean evidence from water. I swallowed, throat tight. Clara's hand shook slightly as she spread a stack of papers and rough sketches on the kitchen table. I went to Loretta's house once, she said. After Elena's death, there was a reception there. I walked the entire first floor while no one paid attention to me. I memorized as much as I could. She pointed at the rough floor plan. This is the main entrance. This is the ballroom where they host events. Here's the kitchen. Here's the service corridor. And this, she tapped a small rectangle off to one side, is Loretta's private office. The ledger is there? I asked. Elena saw it once. She told me about a black leather book and a wall safe hidden behind an oil painting in that room. And the safe? Combination lock, Clara said. Old-fashioned dial. Elena didn't see the code, but she did see Loretta close it quickly when she got caught walking in. I stared at the drawn office. It seemed so small, so unimportant on paper, and yet it was the epicenter of everything. A graveyard, made of ink and numbers. How do I get in? I asked. Clara met my eyes. Tomorrow night, they're hosting a charity gala, she said. Fundraiser for youth arts programs. Perfect cover for their social climbing. I have a friend, Rosa, who runs the catering company they hired. She owes me a favor. I can get you a staff uniform and a name on the roster. What about you? I asked. I'll be outside, she said. Watching, waiting. The last thing we need is Adrian recognizing me before you get to that office. It was strangely comforting, knowing she'd be nearby, like having a guardian spirit just out of sight. If you've never walked into the home of someone who's trying to kill you, disguised as their hired help, I hope you never have to. Loretta's estate looked like something out of an architectural magazine. Sweeping driveway, marble columns, perfectly trimmed hedges. It wasn't just wealth. It was curated power. Rosa drove the catering van. In the back, I sat wedged between trays of chilled appetizers, dressed in black slacks, a white button-up, and a simple black vest. My hair was pinned into a tight, severe bun. Clara had given me thick frame glasses with clear lenses. Not a disguise, she'd said. Just enough to make you one more face among many. I clutched a cheap prepaid phone in my pocket, the same one Clara had used to call the state police tip line earlier that morning. I told them there's an organized fraud and murder ring, she'd said. I told them to be ready for evidence on their doorstep. But Marina, they'll only listen if we give them something they can't ignore. The ledger, that was our bomb. We just had to get to it before Adrian and Loretta realized their carefully laid plan was unraveling. We entered through the service entrance at the back of the house. The kitchen was a controlled storm, chefs shouting, ovens opening and closing, servers weaving through with trays. Rosa handed me a silver tray lined with champagne flutes. "You're on the main floor," she said, eyes already scanning her checklist. "Walk the room, keep glasses filled, don't make eye contact with the guest unless they address you first. Stay invisible and move like you belong." Invisible. I could do invisible. I stepped out into the ballroom, and for a moment, the sight stole my breath. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows, a string quartet playing near the far wall. Men in tuxedos and women in shimmering gowns mingled like they had never known fear, never had to choose between survival and disbelief. And there, near the fireplace, Adrian. He looked devastatingly polished in a midnight black suit, laughing at something an elderly donor was saying. He placed a hand on the man's shoulder, nodded, smiled, attentive, warm, all performance. If I hadn't known what he was, I might have been charmed all over again. Hatred flared in my chest. I turned away before I could tempt myself into walking over and clawing his face. On the other side of the room, Loretta stood at the center of a smaller group, wearing a deep emerald gown, pearl earrings, diamond bracelet. Her smile was gracious, her posture graceful. She looked like the kind of woman reporters described as impeccable and beloved by the community. None of these people saw what she really was. I moved across the room with my tray, offering champagne, keeping my eyes down. No one really looked at me. Waitstaff at these events might as well be furniture. That anonymity, which so often erases us, was my shield tonight. After a few circuits through the ballroom, I drifted toward the back of the house. I set my empty tray down near the kitchen, grabbed a new one to keep up appearances, and whispered to Rosa that I needed to use the restroom. She waved me off without looking. I walked down the corridor Clara had drawn for me in pen the day before. Kitchen, storage closet, side hallway, and then a security guard, broad-shouldered, black suit, earpiece, standing at the entrance of the private wing like a human gate. Damn. Clara hadn't known about that part. I drifted past slowly, pretending to adjust my tray while my mind raced. I couldn't just walk around him. He watched the hallway like a hawk. Then, like an answer from the universe, I heard the crash. Somewhere back in the ballroom, a tray full of glasses hit the floor with explosive shattering. Gasps, scattered exclamations, the sound of servers rushing to clean. The guard's head snapped toward the noise, his hand pressed to his earpiece. "Copy that, I'm coming," he muttered. And he walked away from his post. I didn't hesitate. I slipped down the hallway, heart pounding, the edges of my vision pulsing with adrenaline. Second door on the left, the office. I tried the handle. Locked. Of course. I kept walking, as if I'd meant to go to the end of the hallway, then slipped through a set of glass doors onto a stone patio. Outside, the night was cold and sharp. Trees rustled in the breeze, their branches scratching faintly at the windows. The garden stretched out like a dark sea. I moved along the exterior wall, counting windows just as Clara had described. 1, 2, there. French doors slightly ajar, just enough for a sliver of night air to slip through. Loretta's smoking habit, our unexpected ally. I gently pulled the door open and stepped into the office. Loretta's office was exactly what I'd expected. Dark wood desk, leather chair, bookcases lined with color-coordinated spines. A single lamp on the corner of the desk cast a warm pool of light across neatly stacked folders, and on the wall opposite the desk, a large oil painting of a ship battling stormy seas. I crossed the room quickly, my pulse a continuous roar in my ears. The painting swung outward on hidden hinges when I tugged its edge. Behind it, a small wall safe. Combination dial. Elena hadn't known the code. Clara hadn't either. But Clara had told me something I clung to like a clue in a labyrinth. People like Loretta, she'd said, like to believe they're brilliant, but most of them are creatures of habit. They use numbers that mean something to them. I inhaled shakily and considered Adrian's birthday, Loretta's own, the date she started her job at the courthouse, the year she and her husband bought this house. But then I remembered something from the article Clara had forced me to read that morning, a puff piece from a local magazine celebrating decades of dedication to justice and housing equity. Loretta had been instrumental, they said, in helping modernize the office during a specific year, the year they credit with her real rise to influence. 1999. It was a long shot. I spun the dial, 1-9-9-9. I held my breath and pulled the handle. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then there was a faint click. The safe door swung open. Inside was a single, thick black ledger. No ostentatious stacks of cash, no jewelry, just that book, just the record of everything. My hands trembled as I pulled it out and opened to the first page. Names, addresses, property descriptions, purchase values, transfer dates, disposal methods, profit margins, each entry written in small, precise handwriting. Nicole Turner, Portland, or a two-bedroom condo. Value $410,000. Transferred. March 2015. Status, disposed, June 2015. Method, fall down staircase. Realized, $408,000. My stomach turned. The next page, Lauren Bishop, Seattle, WA townhouse. Value, $635,000. Transferred. September 2016. Status, disposed, December 2016. Method, overdose. Realized, $632,000. Then, Danielle Stewart, Sacramento, CA, single-family home. Value, $780,000. Transferred, February 2018. Status, disposed, April 2018. Method, disappearance. Realized, $776,000. I flipped further. My chest tightened as I reached Elena Ramirez, coastal property value, $1,150,000. Transferred, March 2021. Status, disposed, May 2021. Method, drowning. Realized, $1,147,000. And then, near the bottom of the next page, Marina Ellison, historic townhouse value, $950,000. Savings, $300,000. Transferred, October 2024. Status, in progress. Method, TBD, projected realization, $1,250,000. In progress. That's what I was to her. Not a person, not a life. A transaction waiting to close. My vision blurred. I shoved the feelings down. There would be time to feel later. If I survived, I pulled out the prepaid phone Clara had given me. No SIM connection, but the camera worked. I took photo after photo of every page in the ledger, names, dates, locations, methods, money, all of it. This was no longer a theory. This was evidence. And then I heard voices. Just want to make sure everything is secure back here. Adrian, his voice was closer than I expected, maybe just outside the office door. Panic shot through me like lightning. I shoved the ledger back into the safe, slammed the door, spun the dial blindly. I snapped the painting back into place and scanned the room. No time to sprint for the French doors. No time to hide under the desk. Footsteps approached. The door handle turned. The office door swung inward. I pressed myself flat against the wall just behind the door, praying the angle of the opening would shield me from view. Adrian stepped inside, followed by Loretta. "You're being paranoid," she was saying, irritation threading her words. "Everything is under control." "I saw her, Mother," he hissed. "Clara, outside the gates this afternoon, watching the house." Every muscle in my body went rigid. Let her watch, Loretta said dismissively. She's been haunting us for years. No proof, no credibility. She'll die of grief long before she ever touches us. Adrian moved closer to the painting. What about the ledger? He asked. If they ever got their hands on that, they won't, Loretta snapped. It's in the safe, where it's always been. Check it, he insisted. A cold silence stretched. Then the sound of rustling as she moved the painting. The soft scrape of metal as she spun the dial. The heavy clunk of the safe opening. A pause. Then her voice, no longer composed. Adrian! What? The ledger has been moved. His footsteps hammered toward the safe. Papers rustled. Silence again. Then, someone was in here, he said, voice low and dangerous. Someone opened this. I knew the exact second he saw me. The door had swung almost fully closed behind them, and when he turned, his eyes swept the room and landed on my face. For one suspended beat, we stared at each other. His expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something dark and vicious. You, he growled. The word was more animal than human. He lunged. I didn't think. I grabbed the nearest object on the side table, a heavy crystal bookend shaped like a globe, and threw it at him with everything I had. It struck his shoulder. He grunted but didn't stop. I ran for the French doors. My fingers caught the handle, yanked. For one horrifying second, the latch stuck. Then the door burst open, and I flew out onto the cold stone patio, catching myself on skinned hands. Behind me, Loretta screamed, Security! Stop her! Someone stop that woman! I scrambled to my feet and ran. I didn't know where I was going. Hedges sliced at my legs as I tore through the garden. I could hear footsteps behind me. At least 2 people, maybe 3. I could have tried to hide. Instead, I sprinted toward the front of the house. If they were going to come for me, I wanted witnesses. The circular driveway was packed with luxury cars. Guests lingered on the steps, chatting with drinks in hand. A valet was just opening the door of a sleek silver sedan for a couple stepping out. I burst out of the dark side yard and into the hot white glow of the front entrance lights. Help! I screamed, voice raw. Somebody help me! Dozens of heads turned. Conversation faltered and fell silent. Several valets froze mid-step. And then Adrian emerged from the shadows of the side of the house, chest heaving, hair mussed. Instinctively, I took a step back. When he saw the crowd staring, his entire body language shifted. The rage evaporated from his features, replaced instantly by concern, confusion, carefully constructed heartbreak. Marina, he said, voice soft, wounded. Sweetheart, thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. He walked forward slowly, palms out like I was some fragile thing. You're not well, he said gently. You ran off. Everyone's worried. Let me help you, okay? I stumbled backward another step. Don't touch me, I said, my voice hoarse but loud. You're a murderer. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Loretta appeared behind him, perfectly composed, her gown untouched by the chaos. Someone call an ambulance, she said crisply. The poor girl is having a psychotic break. She broke into my office. She's confused, disoriented. I'm not confused, I shouted. You killed his previous wives. You stole their homes. You forged documents. You stole my house. You drained my accounts. You planned to... My voice broke on the last part. Adrian took another step forward, tone soothing. Marina, everyone here can see you're upset. We've all been so worried. Please, baby, let's go somewhere quiet and talk. I yanked the prepaid phone from my pocket. I have proof, I said, forcing my voice not to crack. I photographed everything, every page of the ledger, every name, every property you stole, every woman you destroyed. Loretta's eyes flickered for just a second. The first crack in her mask. "Security," she said sharply to the two guards hovering near the door. "Please escort her off the property. I'm not pressing charges. I just want her to get the help she needs." The guards started toward me, and then I heard sirens. Real ones, not fire alarms, not metaphors. Police cars pulled into the circular drive, lights flashing red and blue. 4 of them. The guests parted like water, creating a path. The front passenger door of the lead car opened, and a woman stepped out. Mid-40s, dark suit, badge clipped at her belt. Her hair was pulled back, her face alert and assessing. She scanned the scene in a heartbeat. Her gaze landed on me first, sloppy, trembling, my white shirt stained with dirt and grass. Then Adrian and Loretta, flawless, controlled. Then the security guards. Finally, the stunned crowd. She walked straight toward me. "Marina Ellison?" she asked. I swallowed and nodded. "Yes." "I'm Detective Renee Alvarez with the state police," she said. "We received a detailed tip this morning from a Clara Ramirez regarding multiple suspicious deaths and a possible fraud and homicide ring. She said you'd be here tonight collecting evidence." My knees weakened with relief. I managed to hold up the phone. I took photos of everything. The ledger, the entries. It's all in here." She took the phone carefully. "I'll need to review these and secure your statement," she said. "But first," she turned to Adrian and Loretta. "Adrian Blackwell, Loretta Blackwell," she said, voice calm but firm. "I'm going to need you both to come with us for questioning." Loretta straightened, indignation sharpening her features. "This is absurd. We're hosting a charity gala. That woman broke into my office. She's clearly unstable and making wild accusations. Then you'll have no problem answering a few questions and clearing everything up," Detective Alvarez replied evenly. "Voluntarily. At the station." Adrian's jaw clenched. "We're not saying a word without our attorney," he snapped. "That's your right," Alvarez said. "But we can do this one of 2 ways. You can come peacefully for questioning, or I can arrest you right now, in front of all your guests, on suspicion of fraud, conspiracy, and multiple counts of homicide. Your choice." The air crackled. For the first time, Loretta's composure truly faltered. A flash of pure hatred broke across her face before she smoothed it away. "We'll come," she said coldly. "We have nothing to hide." As officers moved in to escort them to separate cars, Adrian's gaze found mine. The mask dropped for just a moment, revealing the thing underneath. "This isn't over," he murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. Alvarez stepped between us. "Actually," she said, "I think it is." She turned back to me, her expression softening. "Are you hurt?" she asked. I shook my head. My hands were scraped, my lungs burned, my heart was a mess, but my body was intact. "Good," she said. "Then let's go make sure they never do this to anyone else again." The months that followed felt like years. I gave my statement over and over. I sat in interview rooms with prosecutors, investigators, victim advocates. I walked them through every detail, from the first time I met Adrian at the art gala to the moment Detective Alvarez stepped onto that driveway. Clara testified too. Her blog records, her timeline of Elena's relationship and death, her investigative notes, they all became part of the case. The ledger was authenticated. Handwriting experts confirmed it was Loretta's. Property records matched the entries. Bank records showed transfers of funds and rapid sales after each woman's death. The state police reached out to departments in Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, and our city. Cold cases were reopened. Autopsies re-examined. An internal affairs probe uncovered a retired police captain who'd taken bribes to steer investigations away from Adrian. He was charged as well. When the trial finally began, it felt like the whole world was watching. I spent 2 full days on the stand. I talked about falling in love, about grief and vulnerability, about how carefully Adrian had studied my weaknesses, about the papers I'd signed without reading, about the warning at the restaurant, about seeing him with those 2 men, about every tiny red flag I'd ignored because I had wanted the fairy tale so badly. I watched the jurors' faces as they looked at me. Some cried, some clenched their jaws, some simply stared, shaken, because they recognized pieces of themselves in my story. Clara's testimony was even harder to hear. She described receiving the call about Elena's accident, the bruises on her daughter's wrists, the dismissive way officers had treated her when she questioned the report, the years she'd spent digging up the truth alone, branded as obsessive. At one point, she turned to the defense table and said, voice trembling but clear, "You took my child's life and turned it into a number in a book." The courtroom was silent. After 3 months of testimony, expert witnesses, cross-examinations, and evidence, the jury deliberated for only 8 hours. They returned with their verdict, guilty, on multiple counts of first-degree murder, on multiple counts of attempted murder, on conspiracy to commit fraud and homicide, on racketeering, on forgery and money laundering. Adrian was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Loretta received 40 years. Given her age, it might as well have been a life sentence, too. The disgraced retired police captain received 15 years. Several lower-level accomplices pled out in exchange for testimony and light sentences. Justice wasn't perfect. It never is. But it was real. And it was public. And it broke the pattern. It took a year to unwind the damage Adrian and Loretta had done to my life. The judge voided the fraudulent property transfer. My townhouse legally returned to me after a brutal documentation process. My accounts were unfrozen. Some money was gone forever, but enough was recovered to let me start again. My former clients reached out with sympathy and business offers. Strangers sent messages saying they'd followed the case, that they believed me, that they were grateful I'd survived. I didn't go back to my old company. I started something new instead. I renamed my business Phoenix Home Studio, not just because I liked the imagery, but because it felt like the only honest metaphor for what I was doing. I was not the same woman who had said yes to Adrian in my grandfather's kitchen. I was someone who had burned and rebuilt. My clients started to find me through word of mouth. Women leaving bad marriages, people moving out of houses that held too many painful memories, survivors trying to create new spaces where they could actually sleep at night. I understood them. I knew what it meant to stand in an empty room and feel both terrified and hopeful. Phoenix Home Studio became about more than just paint colors and floor plans. It became about safety, about agency, about reclaiming spaces and lives. 6 months after the trial, Clara and I visit Elena's grave together. We stood in front of the simple headstone with her name and the words, "Beloved Daughter." Clara placed sunflowers, Elena's favorite, in a vase at the base. "I thought," Clara said quietly, "when the verdict came in, I would finally feel peace, but there's still this ache, this sense that it's not over." I nodded. "I feel it too," I admitted. She pulled out her phone. "There's something I need to show you," she said. On the screen was a woman, maybe early 30s, smiling in a photo next to a man in a crisp button-up shirt. Engagement announcement. Happy couple. The woman's name, Rachel Meyer. My stomach dropped. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Clara swiped to the next picture. "Look at him," she said. The man in the photo wasn't Adrian, but his eyes, the way he held her, the speed of the engagement, the captions about soulmates and fate. It all felt disturbingly familiar. His name was Elliot Chambers. "Who is he?" I asked. Clara's jaw tightened. "Loretta has a cousin. Evelyn Chambers. She never married, but she helped raise her nephew after his mother died. His name is Elliot. Different last name, different city, same pattern. Whirlwind romance. Woman with financial assets, rapid entanglement. My hands clenched. And Rachel? I asked. She inherited a duplex in the city, Clara said. Elliot talked her into adding his name to the deed last month, for estate planning. The bitterness in her voice was palpable. So it's still happening, I whispered, even with Adrian and Loretta locked up. It's evolving, Clara said. The people who learn these systems, these patterns, they rarely keep them to themselves. We stood in silence. Then I said, then we do exactly what you did for me. We warn her, and we don't stop until she listens. Clara looked at me, eyes wet. After everything you've been through, you'd still do that? Put yourself at risk again? I thought of being in that restaurant, heart full and completely unaware. I thought of the feel of Clara's hands pushing cash into mine. I thought of the moment on the driveway when Detective Alvarez stepped between me and Adrian. Yes, I said, because I know what it's like to be her. It wasn't easy. Rachel didn't believe us at first. We sent anonymous emails with links to news stories about Adrian and Loretta. We mailed copies of court transcripts. We found a previous girlfriend of Elliot's, one who'd escaped with her life but lost her savings, and helped her share her story. Eventually, small doubts began to bloom in Rachel's mind. She noticed inconsistencies. She saw how Elliot reacted when she brought up signing a prenup. She caught him lying about his whereabouts. The spell cracked. One day, she called the number we'd slipped into an envelope marked, "For your future, not ours." She met us at a cafe, trembling but steady, holding a folder of her own. "Show me," she said. So we did. We laid it all out. She cried silently for 10 full minutes. Then she wiped her eyes and said, "I want out, and I want him stopped before he does this to someone else." With the help of a financial crimes unit that had followed the Adrian case, we worked with Rachel to confront Elliot in a recorded conversation. He slipped up, he bragged, he admitted to things he thought no one would ever prove. It was enough. Elliot and his Aunt Evelyn were arrested on charges of conspiracy and fraud. Their case is still moving through the courts, but Rachel is safe. Her house remained in her name alone. Her money stayed where it belonged, with her. She sends me a message every year now, just 2 words, "Still free." And that's enough. So why am I telling you all this? Because I'm not the only one. I wish I were. But the truth is, there are people like Adrian and Loretta and Elliot and Evelyn everywhere. They don't always kill. Sometimes they just hollow people out slowly. They rush relationships. They isolate you from friends and family. They love bomb you until your nervous system can't tell the difference between passion and danger. They ask you to sign things you don't understand. They make you feel crazy for asking questions. Maybe you're listening to this thinking, this sounds familiar. If it does, please, for the love of your future, listen to that feeling. I ignored so many signs, the speed of the relationship, the subtle pressure to depend on him, the paperwork he framed as boring adult stuff, the way he seemed a little too perfect, a little too tailored to my grief. I wanted the story so badly, the love story, the healing story, that I didn't realize I was walking into a crime story. If it hadn't been for Clara, I'd be dead. That stack of cash she pushed into my hand was all she had left. She gave it to me anyway, because she couldn't save her daughter, but she could save me. Someone might be trying to do the same for you. A friend, a sibling, a parent, a stranger. If someone warns you about the person you love and a part of you, a small, quiet part, recognizes a sliver of truth in what they're saying, don't dismiss it. You don't have to run tonight. You don't have to blow up your life immediately, But you do need to start paying attention. Look at the paperwork. Check the accounts. Notice who's isolating whom. Notice whether you feel safe or just scared of being alone. There is a difference. I was sitting in a diner at 3 a.m. with a dead phone and $214 to my name when I realized my life as I knew it was over. But here's the part I want you to really hear. That moment, the one that felt like the end, was actually the beginning. I rebuilt, brick by brick, document by document, therapy session by therapy session, client by client. I got my home back. I got my work back. I got myself back. And that's why I share this. Not to scare you, but to tell you that survival is possible. You can walk away from the person who wants to ruin you. You can start over with nothing. You can rebuild something more beautiful than what you thought you had. Because what you thought you had wasn't real. But what comes after? That can be. If this story made you think of someone, yourself, a friend, a sister, don't ignore that feeling. Share this. Talk to someone you trust. Call a hotline. Reach out to an advocacy group. Ask a lawyer to look at any document you've been asked to sign. You are not overreacting. You are not being dramatic. You are not ungrateful. You are protecting yourself, and you deserve to be safe. Always. If you're still here, listening to the end, thank you. If this story resonated with you, please like the video so the algorithm pushes it to someone who might need it tonight more than you know. Subscribe if you want more true stories of survival, justice, and women who refuse to stay silent. And if you're in a position to support this kind of work, these investigations, these hours of research, these interviews with survivors, there's a link in the description where you can make a small contribution. It helps keep these stories alive, and it helps us reach more people who need to hear them. Until next time, stay safe, trust yourself, and never ignore the warning that might be trying to save your life. Because sometimes, the crazy woman in the restaurant is the only one telling you the truth.